Hey, what's going on? It's Tommy, and we are going to be reading the second part of the first lesson of The Magic Ladder to Success by Napoleon Hill, um, edited by Miss Patricia G. Horan, and with some extra commentary by me because I'm obviously reading it. And one of the main things the book always suggests is to have a pen and paper with you, to notate things that come to mind, because the point of the book is to really just get you better ideas. That's really what it comes down to. It talks about the 17 principles of success, and ultimately it's all about that if you end up reading the final paragraph of the book, which is what we're getting at. So this first lesson is called the mastermind, and this next part we are starting. We're going to have a few sections, but basically we're just going to go right into it. And the first title is The Vibrating Principle of Matter. In every particle of matter, there is an invisible force that causes the atoms to move around one another at an inconceivable rate of speed. Call it vibration. It is believed by some investigators that the rate of speed with which this force, call it whatever you will, moves determines the nature of the physical objects of the universe. One rate of vibration causes what is known as sound. The human ear can detect only the sound that is produced through vibrations that range from 32,000 to 38,000 per second. As the rate of vibrations per second increases above what we call sound, they begin to manifest themselves in the form of heat. Heat begins with about 1.5 million vibrations per second. Still higher up the scale, vibrations begin to register in the form of light. 3 million vibrations per second create violet light. Above this number, vibration sheds ultraviolet rays, which are invisible to the naked eye, and other invisible radiations. And still higher up the scale, just how high no one at present seems to know, vibrations create the power with which humans think. It is the belief of this author with the portion of vibration out of which grows all known forms of energy is universal in nature. I'm going to reread that right quick. It is the belief of this author that the portion of vibration out of which grows all known forms of energy is universal in nature. That the fluid portion of sound is the same as the fluid portion of light. The difference in effect between sound and light being only a difference in rate of vibration. Also, that the fluid portion of thought is exactly the same as that in sound, heat, and light, except for the number of vibrations per second. Just as there is but one form of physical matter of which the earth and all other planets, suns, and stars are composed, the electron, so is there but one form of fluid energy that causes all matter to remain in a constant state of rapid motion. Air and atmosphere. Air is a localized substance that performs in the main the service of feeding all animal and planet life with oxygen and nitrogen, without which neither could exist. Nitrogen is one of the chief necessities of plant life, and oxygen one of the mainstays of animal life. Near the top of very high mountains, the air becomes very light, because it contains but little nitrogen, which is the reason why trees grow smaller on the way up, and plant life cannot exist at the highest elevations. On the other hand, the air found in the high altitude consists largely of oxygen, which is the chief reason why tubercular patients used to be sent to high altitudes. What does all this scientific material have to do with you and your goals? You will soon see that it's the very foundation of the philosophy of success that will make reaching those goals possible. Do not become discouraged if all these laboratory facts aren't exactly thrilling to read. If you are seriously engaged in finding out what your available powers are and how to organize and apply these powers, you must combine determination, persistence, and a well-defined desire to gather and organize such knowledge. Your mind is a two-way radio. Alexander Graham Bell was, of course, one of the world's authorities on the subject of vibration, which is the basis of all mental power and of all thought. The following is as true today as the day the inventor of the telephone wrote it. Suppose you have the power to make an iron rod vibrate with any desired frequency in a dark room. At first, when vibrating slowly, its movement will be indicated by only one sense, that of touch. As soon as the vibrations increase, a low sound will emanate from it, and it will appeal in two senses. At about 32,000 vibrations to the second, the sound will be loud and shrill, but at 40,000 vibrations, it will be silent, and the movements of the rod will not be perceived by touch. Its movements will be perceived by no ordinary human sense. From this point up to about 1.5 million vibrations per second, we have no sense that can comprehend any effect of the intervening vibrations. After that stage is reached, movement is indicated first by the sense of temperature, and then, when the rod becomes red hot, by the sense of sight. At 3 million vibrations, it sheds violet light. Above that, it sheds ultraviolet rays and other invisible radiations, some of which can be perceived by instruments and employed by us. Now, it has occurred to me that there must be a great deal to be learned about the effect of those vibrations in the great gap where ordinary human senses are unable to hear, see, or feel the movement. The power to send wireless messages by ether vibrations lies in that gap. But the gap is so great that it seems there must be much more. You must make machines practically to supply new senses, as the wireless instruments do. Can it be said, when you think of that great gap, that there are not many forms of vibrations that may give us results as wonderful as, or even more wonderful than, the wireless waves? It seems to me that in this gap lie the vibrations which we have assumed to be given off by our brain and nerve cells when we think. But then, again, they may be higher up in the scale beyond the vibrations that produce the ultraviolet rays. Author's note. The last sentence suggests the theory held by this author. And I'm going to repeat it here again. It seems to me that in this gap lie the vibrations which we have assumed to be given off by our brain and nerve cells when we think. But then again, they may be higher up in the scale beyond the vibrations that produce the ultraviolet rays. When mind speaks directly to mind. Do we need a wire to carry these vibrations? Will they not pass through the ether without a wire, just as the wireless waves do? How will they be perceived by the recipient? Will he hear a series of signals, or will he find that another man's thoughts have entered into his brain? We may indulge in some speculations based on what we know of the wireless waves, which, as I have said, are all we can recognize of a vast series of vibrations which theoretically must exist. If the thought waves are similar to the wireless waves, they must pass from the brain and flow endlessly around the world and the universe. The body and the skull and other solid obstacles would form no obstruction to their passage, as they pass through the ether which surrounds the molecules of every substance, no matter how solid and dense. You ask if there would not be constant interference and confusion if other people's thoughts were flowing through our brains and setting up thoughts in them that did not originate with ourselves. How do you know that the other men's thoughts are not interfering with yours now? I have noticed a good many phenomena of mind disturbances that I have never been able to explain. For instance, there is the inspiration or the discouragement that a speaker feels in addressing an audience. I have experienced this many times in my life and have never been able to define exactly the physical causes of it. Many recent scientific discoveries, in my opinion, point to a day, not far distant perhaps, when men will read one another's thoughts, when thoughts will be conveyed directly from brain to brain without the intervention of speech, writing, or any of the present known methods of communication. Putting ideas to work is a profitable business, but it makes a slight difference whether the ideas were created by you or by someone else. It is not unreasonable to look forward to a time when we shall see without eyes, hear without ears, and talk without tongues. Briefly, the hypothesis that mind can communicate directly with mind rests on the theory that thought or vital force is a form of electrical disturbance, that it can be taken up by induction and transmitted to a distance either through a wire or simply through the all-pervading ether, as in the case of wireless telegraph waves. There are many analogies which suggest that thought is of the nature of an electrical disturbance. A nerve which is of the same substance as the brain is an excellent conductor of the electric current. When we first passed an electrical current through the nerves of a dead man, we were shocked and amazed to see him sit up and move. The electrified nerves produced contradiction of the muscles very much as in life. Thought is electric. The nerves appear to act upon the muscles very much as the electric current acts upon an electromagnet. The current magnetizes a bar of iron placed at right angles to it, and the nerves produce through the intangible current a vital force that flows through them, contraction of the muscular fibers that are arranged at right angles to them. It would be possible to cite many reasons why thought and vital force may be regarded as of the same nature as electricity. The electric current is held to be a wave motion of the ether, the hypothetical substance that fills all space and pervades all substances. We believe that there must be ether, because without it the electric current could not pass through a vacuum or sunlight through space. It is reasonable to believe that only a wave motion of a similar character can produce the phenomena of thought and vital force. We may assume that the brain cells act as a battery and that the current produced flows along the nerves. But does it end there? Does it not pass out of the body in waves which flow around the world unperceived by our senses, just as the wireless waves passed unperceived before Hertz and others discovered their existence? This author has proved, to his own satisfaction at least, that every human brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for vibrations of thought frequency. If this theory should turn out to be fact, and methods of reasonable control should be established, imagine the part it would play in the gathering, classifying, and organizing of knowledge. The possibility, much less the probability, of such a reality staggers the mind of man. Thomas Paine was one of the great minds of the American Revolutionary period. Thomas Paine was one of the great minds of the American Revolutionary period. To him we give credit more perhaps than to any other one person, for both the beginning and the happy ending of the Revolution. For it was his keen mind that helped both in drawing up the Declaration of Independence and in persuading the signers of that document to translate it into reality. Whose thoughts made Paine a genius? In speaking of the source of his great storehouse of knowledge, Paine thus described it: any person who has made observations on the state of progress of the human mind, by observing his own, cannot but have observed that there are two distinct classes of what are called thoughts: those that we produce in ourselves by reflection and the act of thinking, and those that bolt into the mind of their own accord. I have always made it a rule to treat these voluntary visitors with civility, taking care to examine as well as I was able if they were worth entertaining, and it is from them I have acquired almost all the knowledge that I have. As to the learning that any person gains from school education, it serves only like a small capital, to put him in the way of beginning learning for himself afterward. Every person of learning is finally his own teacher, the reason for which is that principles, being of a distinct quality to circumstances, cannot be impressed upon the memory. Their place of mental residence is the understanding, and they are never so lasting as when they begin by conception. In the foregoing words, Paine described a phenomenon that at one time or another is the experience of every person. Who is so unfortunate as not to have received positive evidence that thoughts and even complete ideas will pop into the mind from the outside sources? What means of conveyance is there for such visitors except the air? It is the medium of conveyance for all known forms of vibration, such as sound, light, and heat. Why would it not be also the medium of conveyance of the vibration of thought? Every mind is connected. Every mind or brain is directly connected with every other brain. Every thought released by any brain may be instantly picked up and interpreted by all other brains that are in rapport with the sending brain. This author is as sure of this fact as he is that the chemical formula H2O will produce water. It is the belief of this author that every thought, vibration released by any brain is picked up in the atmosphere and kept in motion in circuitous wavelengths. The length of the wave depends on the intensity of the energy used in releasing the thought. These vibrations remain in motion and are one of the two sources of the thoughts that so often pop into one's mind. The other source is the direct and immediate contact with the brain that is releasing the thought vibration. If this theory is a fact, the boundless space of the whole universe is literally a library containing all the thoughts released by humankind. This is the basis for one of the most important points made in this chapter. According to scientists, most of the useful knowledge available to the human race has been preserved and accurately recorded in nature's Bible, the Earth. By turning back the pages of this unalterable Bible, we may read the story of the terrific struggle that produced this civilization. The pages of this Bible are made up of the physical elements of Earth and other planets, and of the atmosphere that contains them. By turning back the pages written on stone and on the surface of this earth, we have uncovered the bones, skeletons, footprints, and other unmistakable evidence of the history of animal life through many epochs and eras. The evidence is plain and unmistakable. The great stone pages of nature's Bible constitute an authentic source of communication between the Creator and humankind. This Earth Bible was begun before humans had reached the thinking stage. Indeed, before the amoeba stage of development was reached. This Bible is above and beyond the power of humans to alter. Moreover, it tells its story in universal language. Vibrations, waves, and thoughts. Though we take them for granted, we must not fail to see the marvel in the everyday miracles at our disposal. Our ancestors could not have imagined that ordinary vibrations such as those made by a human voice hitting a thin metal plate could be converted to sounds emerging from a radio in a distant home. The electric waves that are created from these vibrations move out in all directions at the speed of light, 186,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers per second. Similarly, our television sets pick up radio waves and turn them back into sound and pictures. Our telephones permit vibrating electric signals to flow in an electromagnet inside the receiver, making a steel diaphragm vibrate and emit sound. These everyday realities, the instantaneous transmission of sound vibrations, make it easier for us to see the transmission of thought vibrations from mind to mind as equally real. With that, we finish the second part, we're going to go into the mastermind to creating a mighty third on the next part, and that's going to be its own section. It's about 9 pages, so it'll take about similar time as this, maybe 25 minutes. And I just want to tell you, if anything came to mind, you should write it down. And, you don't have to act on it. I mean, anything good that comes to mind, or anything you want to fix, impressive thoughts that you've had come to mind that you would like to move forward with, right? And definitely communicate with me here. I want to continue, this dialogue, and just remind the main reason we're reading this book, The Magic Ladder to Success, is because I think the intention of Napoleon Hill vibrates within these words, and the editor and myself. So the intention truly is for you to just be able to get to a better place for yourself, or just enjoy the present moment as much as possible as you can. And with that, I invite you to the next part. And hopefully talk to you sometime in the near future. And I wish you all the best.